Good morning and welcome to Talkable San Leandro, a series of community conversations with people in San Leandro who are making a difference. I hope you like purple. I have 3 interviews today and I'll be wearing this purple shirt. If you're susceptible to epileptic attacks, you may want to avert your eyes. But enough with the comedy, let's get down to politics. I'm fortunate to have Mayor Pauline Cutter here this morning to talk about her candidacy and what she's accomplished over the last 4 years. Welcome, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I want to thank you you were the first one who said you agreed to come in and do this. And there's a little bit of courage involved in that, right? Because you didn't know what it was. And so I want to thank you for kind of demonstrating some bravery there. I've started with every candidate, and I asked them a little bit about their personal life. And I don't mean to get into personal details, but I think it's important. It's relative to how people vote, you know. And so Pauline Cutter, the young Pauline Cutter, born, raised, family life. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, I was born and raised about 3 or 4 miles from here.
Okay.
This is the 3rd house I've ever lived in, so I guess I'm not a real gadabout. But I was the 4th daughter, you know, of 4 women, and then my mom.
You were the youngest?
I was the youngest, and I learned how to use the restroom quick because my dad was 5 minutes and you're dead, you know. But generally grew up, my dad was a millwright and a machinist, and so it was a working man's family.
And did he work in San Leandro?
No, he worked actually at Kaiser Aerospace.
I got it.
Over in San Leandro, so
right.
Yes, he did, but we grew up in San Lorenzo.
Okay.
And then I made the big switch when I was about 23, so about 40 years ago. So I also met my husband the first year I got out of high school, went to college, met my husband, and I'm still married to him 41 years later.
Super.
So yeah, I guess change isn't very,
well,
I'm just noticing
you found
that,
a good thing,
know?
you
Yeah,
found a good thing and you stuck with it.
You know, I like what I find and I make it work.
It's a nice community. So I've asked some of the other candidates, there's a couple of questions I want to kind of get through and then give you an opportunity to talk about some of the accomplishments that you've had. But the first one is rent control. I know Costa Hawkins is looming out there. Whether it goes or blows, there's opportunities. Rent control is certainly, it's a matter of severity. And so what are your views on rent control?
Well, certainly rent control is something that, you know, it's come into limelight a lot more in San Leandro. At this point, I'm not for rent control. I think that we're doing some measures in San Leandro. We're looking at what our housing stock is. There's different pillars to this whole problem of not enough housing.
Right.
And to me, you know, we need to make sure that we're building housing and not just, you know, affordable or low affordable housing. We need to make sure that we're building all kinds, because what we found is sometimes we were building the affordable units and those are being taken up with the tech people.
Right.
So then it flushes everybody out. So we need to have units that they'll buy or rent, and then the units that people that, you know, need the affordable units. So getting more housing is certainly one of the best answer. The second answer is doing our rent review and our tenant protections, which we are doing in San Leandro, and, you know, looking at maybe tightening these up if they're you know, not working. But one thing I found in San Leandro over the course of my years is that we have a lower than average, or, you know, lower than market rate rents in San Leandro. And so to have that means you must be doing something right. There must be something in that control lever that you know, it's like a balance. And so I feel like we are. I feel like we're being very attentive to that and making sure that we are staying with it. I know if you're the person who gets, you know, you can't stay in your apartment because you're being you know, your rent's moving up or whatever, but we've also made some tenant protections in that area. And so I'm just hoping out of the 95 cases we had in 2014, 2 were not resolved. And so as they go through the process, it seems like we've got something that's working. And, you know, until I find that it's not really working or the balance is shifting a lot, I don't think I would be for rent control, but something to think about.
Well, thank you. And so with regard to, you know, the kind of tiny house movement, where houses behind houses, there lots of San Leandro lots are very large. And I know the city has kind of, I guess, looked at those regulations and loosened them up a bit. Is there any, is there progress there that is allowing that type of dwelling to exist in San Leandro, trying to increase the housing stock?
Yeah, I mean, we just did ADU, is, you know, what that's called, and I think that we've done a lot. We just in the last year, actually, we progressed because pushed kind of by the state, but we were kind of doing it concurrently, but with the state laws. One of the things that we did in San Leandro, though, that I insisted on is having it be an owner-occupied, one or the other. Because I think when you have owner-occupy on your lot, you're going to have a lot more respect for your neighbors and so forth. And not that renters aren't respectful, but just there's the buy-in of being there all the time and being the one responsible so people can talk to you about it. And so with that, we've loosened up. I mean, you can now build up to 1/2 of what the original housing unit is. There's just a lot of different rules. We do have a lot of fees, though, and so right now I want to take another look at those fees because from what I'm hearing is some of the people feel that they're really excessive, and you know, maybe that's not. Maybe that's preventing that extra. But what I want to do is keep our neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And it's really important to me to do that.
I think it is too. So, and the final question on housing is Airbnb. I know there's a moratorium now that, you know, non-hosted is not available in San Leandro. How do you come down on that, on the Airbnb controversy? Or?
Yeah, and it has been. You know, first of all, my first point that I take away is I want my neighborhoods to stay my neighborhoods. And so I was for the moratorium on non-hosted, but I think, and what I'm hearing is some of the hosted could be just as bad as the non-hosted. And so really what it means to me is having more controls on the number of people that you can be, the number of cars that can come into your neighborhood. Those kinds of things are the things that really disrupt the neighborhood. And so, you know, maybe the number of days that you're going to be able to do this. But I hear a lot from people, and myself included, when I went to Europe, I was able to go into an Airbnb, and that was the way I was able to be in a neighborhood and feel the whole experience. So I think there's a lot more conversation to be had. And we did have a conversation, and what it did show is, you know, first a very strident people that were really concerned, but these were the people who had the problems in their neighborhood. So rightly so, they were very concerned about making sure that we protected it. But now we're having a conversation more with everyone, so everybody can participate, and it needs to be safe for everyone to participate, because if you don't feel safe, you're not going to come up, and then we're not going to get the whole picture.
Okay, thanks. And then the other question I've been asking other people is, you know, our unmet debt, it's grown.
Or pension liabilities,
Pension liabilities, you know, the numbers that some 4 years ago, we were at 105 million, and I guess I heard from Jeff K, 203 million now. And so I know it's a systemic problem. Every city in California is under great pressure and under great debt. And so, but what do you see as the mechanisms to stem the tide, to live within this debt prison that we're kind of building?
So one of the things to understand is what happened, you know, when I first came on, we had this system where employees the city were paying the employee share and the city was paying so through negotiations and the help of our employees, we've made it so now employees pay their own fair share and the city pays theirs. With the last 2 bargaining rounds, we've now increased it to where the employees are paying their share plus some of the cities, and that's through raises and things like that to make it more even. But when you say that it jumps up, what happens is we're going along and we're paying down our debt, and then PERS says, oops, we didn't make 7.5%, so we're only going to estimate 7%. So we're going to add another 100,000 to your. So it's one day you're at 158,000, the next day we woke up and we were at 215, and it's like, you know, we didn't do anything about it. But one of the things I thought was so important, because I'm a saver, I mean, that's just the way I've always been in my life, is we started the pool program, and we have various conditions when they're met that we take the money and we put it into the pool program. We had a goal of $5 million when I started being mayor, and we're now at 16 million. So we're trying to put debt there, and also we know that we have some bonds that are going to be paid off in 2024, and so we know we're going to have some money left over from what we were paying on that debt service, and that is also going to be dedicated to this problem. So if you look at our long-term goal, we have managed to pay it. I'm not saying it's not going to be rough, but we have a goal to get us to where we need to be. A lot of cities don't have that goal, and they don't have the hope, and so I believe some of this is going to be taken to the state, and the state's going to have to help out, or you're going to find a lot of cities in bankruptcy.
Okay, well,
But we won't be one of them.
right, good. Well, good. Well, listen, I wanted to give you a couple of minutes just to talk about your last 4 years and, successes and challenges and how things have gone. So give us a little overview.
Okay. Well, one thing I didn't add when I was talking about myself is I had 3 children who were born in San Leandro, went through all the public schools, and then went to Sonoma State. And one of them got to come home and live because her and her husband could afford to buy a house. I want this San Leandro to be a place where everybody wants to come home and live. And that includes affordable housing, but it includes, good schools and a vibrant social life, good jobs, things like that. And so that's what I'm really working towards. Being mayor is this game that it's not a game, it's a job that you have where you're working with the day-to-day things,
right.
Things that aren't rent control and all of those things here. But then you're also looking out 20 years and what do I want my city to be in 20 years? And that's what we really need to get as mayor. That's what your view is you've got to make it right for the people in 20 years along with the people that you're living here now.
Right.
And so one of the things I think is so important is the city of kindness. And I got a lot of flack when I first brought it back, but more and more people are adopting it, especially given our national, what's going on there.
Yeah.
But the city of kindness means not only to each other and so forth, but it means to our earth. And so resilience and sustainability is really important to me. We've hired a person who's a sustainability manager. Okay. So now contracts and things like that go through her. So we make sure that San Leandro is not using up more of our carbon footprint, but indeed lessening our carbon footprint in the world. And I think that we're really on a track because if you're more sustainable to begin with and you have a disaster, then you're more prepared to deal with a disaster. So that's kind of that future goal. And then the future goal of what our TODs are going to look like, what our housing is going to look like, just making sure that we're planning to make it a reasonable city where we all want to live.
Good. That's great. There was one question I wanted to ask you because you were on the school board for years, and I know in San Lorenzo High now that the kids have to put their cell phones in a little green bag. It's sealed and then it's only opened by the teacher at the end of the day. I've read reports that teachers say it's literally transformed their campus. The kids are walking straight up and talking to each other, engaging the teachers, and the whole kind of cell phone mentality, of course, kind of goes against that. And so I know that the city council and the school board work closely. Lots of members go back and forth. What do you think about something like that? I haven't heard anything like that in San Leandro, but it seems to be, I've heard it happening in places across the world where kids are deprived of their cell phones.
Well, I've not heard that before, but it's really an interesting idea. One thing, I was taking Bart to San Francisco for one of my committees or whatever you want to call it. And I looked up, and I don't know that there was one person that didn't have their cell phone in their hand. It's this, and you're not looking at each other, you're not making eye contact with anybody, you're only eye contact with your phone. And as an early childhood teacher, that scares me so much to think our youth are not having that personal interactions, because it's going to pay back someday, and we need to do it. So yeah, I think it's a great idea. I mean, when you have people who are being engaged, you can do wonderful things, and that's what being a city manager, being a city mayor is all about.
Well, good. We've got a YouTube limit of 15 minutes. We're kind of beating down the clock here. It's been wonderful talking to you. I want to thank our viewing audience for tuning in to Talkable San Leandro. If you know anyone who you think would benefit from such an interview, please contact me. But in the meantime, keep up the conversation. Maybe a little less of this and more what we're doing here. I think we'll all be better off. Thank you very much.